welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Now, this morning we are joined by the Prime Minister of the Bahamas and Chairman of the Caribbean Community, or CARICOM, the Honorable Philip Davis, KCMP, as we continue the discussion on the CARICOM Symposium on Crime and Violence as a public health issue, the Crime Challenge. Minister Davis, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning.
Minister, are you okay? You can hear me, right?
Yes, I'm okay, fine.
Nice,
I can
good.
hear you.
Now, I know that we would have started the conversation yesterday, and as chair of CARICOM, I was just wondering if you can give us an overview in terms of what was discussed yesterday.
Well, first of all, the discussion covered a wide range of issues. First of all, identifying the fact that the violent crime throughout the Caribbean region is, in fact, a public health issue. The initiatives that we need to take to diagnose and thereafter monitor responses to those issues. We had interventions by industry experts, psychiatrists, psychologists, and of course leaders of various member states speaking to issue as it impacts their particular state. So we identified a number of issues that are some of the root causes of crime. For example, the lack of parenting, the lack of interventions for hurt young children who may have been abused in some form or fashion growing up, and one of the psychiatrists in particular, Dr. David Allen, spoke to the fact that his research reveals that a hurt child becomes a dangerous adult, and therefore, when at an early stage in one's growing up, as it were, intervention is required. And so yesterday was quite fruitful, very long, engaging, and what was very impressive to me is the fact that though we started at 9, it ran until about 7 p.m. last night, and all participants were very eager to be involved, and it suggests that where there may have been no will, the will is now there to do things that would, in fact, respond in a positive and meaningful way to this epidemic that grips our community.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned it as an epidemic, because I was reading your speech, Mr. Davis, and I know one of the things that you mentioned, of course, is that CARICOM has embraced the view of violence as a public health crisis. And as you mentioned before, you refer to it as an epidemic. How does CARICOM intend to deal with this, not just on an each state level, but on a regional level?
Well, some collaborative issues, for example, with respect to the detection of crime, the resource that's available in each member state is stretched to the point where we are thinking of having a Caribbean center, for example, for forensic analysis to assist in the solving of criminal activities. We also note that there are cross-border issues that impact the violent behavior. For example, the transit into each state of drugs, and associated with that, of course, is the violence that goes along with it. And so strengthening our regional intelligence agencies to better respond and to share intelligence is an initiative that we intend to strengthen. It is there through the institution called Impacts, and they are collating and assisting in the sharing of information between the member states. And so we intend to continue to monitor and diagnose, and the key at the end of the day is to continuation of sharing intelligence. Coming out of the discussions yesterday as well, is there's an economic cost to violent crime, and it's startling the amount of resources that's diverted from the traditional services that government has to attend to, that goes into responding to this aspect. I mean, in Trinidad, when the numbers were startling, in my country it was startling, but
right.
each incident of violent crime is a cost associated with that. And there again, we start thinking about how we could share some resources to alleviate the burden on each member state, and just share that burden to be able to be again to collaborate with each other on those matters.
Now, Mr. Davis, if I can just interject here quickly, I know that you were talking about some of these solutions, but in terms of the time frame that we're given, because I know you mentioned the monitoring, the whole of state approach in terms of dealing with this very important epidemic, but how soon can we see some of those being implemented at a CARICOM level?
Well, those timelines will be discussed sometime during the course of today's event, and the heads meet early this morning just to set up to decide the outcomes from this particular symposium, so that we could perhaps sign on to a declaration that's out of which we will hopefully have timelines embedded. The question of timeline again is, I don't know whether we could put a timeline on all of these issues, because it continues to evolve, and the complexity of the issues are such that we have to deal with it perhaps on as we meet some of the issues. All I can say is that the fundamentals for response may be settled and timelines fixed, but when you drill down to the various initiatives that may have to be engaged or embraced, the timeline on that may be very fluid.
All right. And Mr. Davis, before you go, if I can lean on you just as the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, can you give us an overview in terms of what the crime looks like in that country? So, for example, hey, I know we have a lot of illegal guns in our society. Is that the similar response in the Bahamas, or what sort of trends can we see coming out of that country?
Well, I omitted to mention earlier that one of the most of our violence in the community are gun-related, and as you know, none of the member states manufacture guns. The issue as to the trafficking in guns in the region impacts us just as it does the other member states. We have a very serious issue with gun-related crimes. I've been calling on the United States since I assumed office to do more to assist our country in particular. We're right on the doorsteps of the United States to stem the outflow of guns from their country to ours. In particular, I've spoken to the highest level in the United States, highlighting the fact that I'm not going to get involved in their debate on their right to bear arms, but their right to bear arms necessarily cannot embrace a definition that includes the right to traffic in arms, and that's where we find ourselves being the victim of the trafficking in arms. We have had we could demonstrate where our Bahamians or Americans of Bahamian descent or dual nationality purchased 46 guns over a period of 2 months. I mean, within days, it was found being used in the Bahamas in some gun-related violence. We report those matters because we have this tracing tools. We're able to identify through the ballistics that where the gun would have been purchased, where it was manufactured, and we seek the assistance of the U.S. to do more than just sit idly by and rely on this notion that they have about the right to bear arms,
Yes.
And so we're impressing upon them that they have to step in. Now, one of the other matters on this issue of guns and trafficking of guns into our region, we have joined the Mexican government in their lawsuit against gun manufacturers in the United States to seek compensation and to seek some legal redress to curb their just what I call like the illegally selling of guns without considering those guns being trafficked. And that is now before the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals because it was dismissed at the first instance level. And Trinidad, myself, Jamaica, Belize, Antigua, and Bermuda have joined through an amicus brief to support the claims against gun manufacturers. Not dissimilar to what I call the tobacco litigation.
Right. Now, Prime Minister Davis, I'm going to interject only because, unfortunately, we are out of time. I know that 10 minutes can seem a lot, but it actually is a very, very short time. But let me thank you so much for joining us this morning. I wish you all the best for the rest of the conference. I know that we're going to be working out that timeline today. And thank you so much for what you have presented thus far on the issue. So thank you so much for joining us.
Right. Thank you very much. And I'd always like to take the opportunity to publicly thank your Prime Minister, Rowley, for being the leader and in this issue and convening the symposium here in Trinidad. I wish to publicly thank him for his efforts in this regard.
And we thank you as well, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
And that was the Honorable Philip Davis, KCMP, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, and of course, the Chairman of the CARICOM community, or the Caribbean community, or CARICOM, just sharing some updates on what we would have learned at the presentations that we had, and also his view of what is happening in the Bahamas as it relates to crime and violence. On the Now Morning Show, we're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.